There you go. So your biggest asset is you. You are your biggest asset. Without you, how you gonna pay for this house? Without you, how you gonna pay for this car? Without you, how you gonna fund this retirement, send your kids to college, and all these amazing things? You are your biggest asset, right? You are your biggest asset. What are you doing to protect you? Because it starts with you. Because if you're not good, then what do you have to protect? What do you have to put in a trust? What do you have to put in a will? So it's about you first, right? Hey, shout out to Andrea. So nice to see you, right? So it starts with you guys. You are your biggest asset. And how are you protecting yourself? And how are you protecting your health? What do you have in place for unexpected life emergency? What is going to be your lifeline? Yes, God is always going to be our lifeline, but after God, what's going to be your lifeline? Right? These are some questions I want you guys to answer for yourself. When you get sick, not when, not if, but when you get sick, how much is it going to cost you? Can you still pay the bills? Can you still pay the mortgage? Can you still pay the Ferrari or Bentley or BMW or Benz or whatever you have in your driveway? Or if it's a regular car, can you still pay those things? Guys, when we become ill, the cost for staying alive, is it cheap or is it expensive? Put in the chat. When we become ill and if we cannot work, because we are our first biggest asset, it starts with you and I first, right? When we get sick, is it going to be cheap or expensive to stay alive? What is that cost? What do you think that cost is going to be? Expensive, right? And I know we have nurses on this line, right? Which I'm glad that they're on, right? And if it is going to be expensive, because cost of living is expensive, medical care is expensive, then what do you have in place to protect your income? Right? Because we're talking about protecting your estate, protecting your asset, but you first are the asset. It starts with you. You first. So we're going to kick off our presentation and then we're going to segue to, now that we have our assets, how do we protect it? How do we protect this asset once we have it, right? How do we protect it? Because let's talk about you first, because you are the asset. So let's start the presentation. Many of us have heard about living benefits, I would think. If you have not, you're going to learn about living benefits. We're talking about you being your asset, you being your biggest asset first and foremost, because without you, you cannot work to make this money, to buy all these things, to stack your account, to stack your investment account, and to put this money away. So what is living benefits? I talked about protecting your income. Heart attack, cancer, stroke, ALS, end-stage renal disease, paralysis, blindness, anything that happens that affects your health. Because again, these things are happening. People are not just waking up and dying. They're going to get sick first before they pass away. So if you need help with your daily living activities, bathing, dressing, eating, sleeping, toileting, walking, moving about, that is what living benefits are going to pay you, because you cannot work. So let's talk about living benefits versus disability insurance, because I hear a lot of clients say, well, Odetta, I got a good job and I got disability. Well, first of all, there's short-term disability. So does anybody know how much time the short-term disability gives you? And long-term disability? Put in the chat. If you got a really good job and God forbid, life happened, our health goes down south. Now we cannot work. How long is disability is going to last for? Yep. Shelly Ann said it, right? So short-term disability is for 3 months and long-term disability is for 6 months. But guess what? Yes, that's going to hold you over for 6 months. But again, it's based on how much is your income. Most people in America, do you think they're working for over 100,000 or less than 100,000? So if you're working for little money, it's a percentage of your salary. Now they're going to give you in disability. And does anybody think it's going to be enough? Now, again, this is a percentage that they're calculating off of your income. And again, the max you're only going to get it for is 6 months. So what if you are ill and you have to be out of work for more than 6 months? Understand the difference. Disability, max 6 months, and it's going to be based on your income, a percentage of that. You don't get your whole check. No, right? Now, if you have living benefits, now we're talking that's extra. That's peace of mind. And you're going to see why, right? So in the event of a heart attack, stroke, cancer, which are the 3 major leading causes that are happening every 7 to 10 seconds, someone is being diagnosed. And I'm sure all of you on this call know someone that has been affected with cancer, heart attack, or stroke, right? So, very good friend of mine, Tyrone. Young, vibrant, handsome, got a great job. He's healthy. Life is great. He's in the gym. He's turning up. Everything is good. Then, boom, he gets hit with a car accident. Whole life shattered. Can't work for months, out of work for a whole year. But because someone sat with him, someone ran behind him, someone stayed on top of him for days, weeks, months, even years. And he finally sat with someone like ourselves and said, you know what? I'm going to take out this policy. I'm going to take out this living benefit. And he decided to protect his family. He's doing good. Life is great. But then he gets hit by a car. Total life got upside down. Transamerica, our parent company that has been around for 119 years, the #1 company known for its living benefits. When you get this plan, it's not about the debt. It's about living benefits. He was able to accelerate his living benefit. Somebody put in the chat, how much was he able to be paid out while he's alive? Laying in hospital bed over a year. Would his job disability ever pay him $353,000? Remember, disability is a percentage of your income. How much are you making? Then that percentage, 60%. So if you're making 40, 50, 60, 80, or even 100,000, what's 60% of that you're going to get, and for how long? 6 months. If you're still out more than 6 months, now you got to dip into your savings. Now you're going to be extra stressed. But because someone sat with him, educated him, and showed him that this is something you absolutely need, even though you're young, even though life is great, even though you're healthy, he's minding his business, going to work one day, bam, car accident. Transamerica paid him out $353,000 living benefit. So he didn't die. It's living benefits. Today, when you speak to him, he's grateful to be alive, but not only grateful to be alive, but living his dream life. You think he had 353,000 cash in his bank account? You think he had 353,000 cash in his IRA or 401k? How many people have 353,000 cash that they could just put their hands on tomorrow and deal with everything? So he did not have to give up his house. He did not have to downgrade his house. He kept paying his mortgage and he still could keep his 2 cars because that 353,000 kept everything going and he could focus on recuperating and getting healthy. That's living benefits. So what about you? Now I'm going to give you another story of a nurse practitioner. And I know we have nurses on this call. This person sat with us, but said, you know what, Odetta, I'm good. I got money in the bank. I got real estate. I got income property. I'm good, Odetta. Trust me, I'm good. I'm a nurse. I got everything. I'm good. I got my health insurance. I got my disability. I'm good. Well, no, she's not. She got diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. More than 6 months she out of work. She can't even work anymore. They did a GoFundMe for her to raise money for her cancer treatment. Look how much money people donated to her GoFundMe. What's the total? Type it in the chat. What is the total all her friends and family donated to her GoFundMe? You are your asset. You are your biggest asset, people. Without you, nothing is getting done. Without you, there's nothing to protect. Without you, there's nothing to pay for. You are your biggest asset. Look at that. $1,132. Somebody with stage 3 cancer, a nurse practitioner. Look at some of the amounts people donated. $20. Like somebody fighting for cancer. $20, $30, $25. Hey, we're not complaining because they didn't have to give anything. Go fund your own life, right? Nurse practitioner, everything is good. So the number one reason why people in America go bankrupt and poverty is these 3 big men right here. These 3 big men right here will wipe out all the money you think you got. All this money we think we got and we good, it will wipe it out in months, not years, months. When I say you're your biggest asset, you are your biggest asset. Stroke. Over almost 800,000 people get diagnosed every year. Heart attack, over 800,000 people. And cancer, the big man. We're trending almost 2 million. You are your biggest asset. So this is chronic and critical illness. Let's talk about how are you protecting your income? Because you got a job, you got money in the bank, you got your real estate income, but that ain't nothing. And I'm talking from seeing people experience. That ain't nothing. It doesn't matter if you have 300,000, that is nothing. It's amazing how we work so hard to accumulate all this money that we think is a lot. And these 3 right here will wipe it out in months. So do you have income protection? Odetta, what is income protection? God forbid something happened to your health, heart attack, cancer, stroke, which by the way, people are beating. but it's a strong fight. It's a battle. It's a money battle first off, because it is not cheap. And of course, it's all the others. But when you have a plan with living benefit, that is what we call income protection. Heart attack, stroke, cancer, renal kidney failure, blindness from diabetes. How many people we know got diabetes? Right? If you need help with bathing, dressing, eating, toileting, guys, my brother, many of you see me post him. He's in a nursing home. Double amputee, mental, all kind of stuff. We didn't know about this stuff. We didn't know about these things, right? So when you have living benefits, that is income protection. That is money that keeps paying everything for you. Well, now you could just focus on fighting the disease. Because make no mistake, all of us are going to die from something. What is that something? We don't know. But it's going to take money to fight it. And it's not going to be cheap. Because we live in America where nothing is cheap, and certainly medical is not cheap. So what protection do you have now that will give you access to hundreds of thousands of dollars? Hundreds of thousands. You may not have hundreds of thousands, but what do you have in place right now that will give you access to hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly even millions, to fight whatever is it and keep you alive, even if it's just a day longer? In the event of a critical illness, a chronic illness, or a terminal illness. If you've been on this Zoom before, you've heard me say it all the time. I'm insured for $3.5 million. Before I could even understood what I did 7 years ago, I just knew, hey, I ain't got no kids. And if I get sick, my money got to go before me. My money got to talk for me. My money got to do whatever needs to get done. My money got to do it for me. And the more I learn about living benefits, the more I see people getting diagnosed with illnesses, I am so scared. But financially, I'm prepared for the battle. And with God, we're going to beat it, right? So I leave you with this last slide. I talk about me having 3.5 million. Every person in America, if you want to set yourself up financially, you need $1 million minimum in living benefits. $1 million minimum in living benefits, especially if you live in a high profile life, especially if you got a mortgage, especially if you got nice cars in your driveway, especially if you live in a high profile life. Because you know what? If life knocks you down, health-wise, you ain't got to sell that house. You ain't got to sell that car. You ain't got to downsize and go live with your kids. This person got approved for $1 million. And it tells you right there, living benefits. So she's covered for critical, terminal, and chronic. Bring it on. She's protected. So make sure you get protected before it's too late, because the longer you wait, it's going to cost you, right? And I wanted to start with that because you are your biggest asset. Without you, how you going to do whatever you need to do? How are we going to save this money? How are we going to pay for all these things that now we're going to put in a trust to protect, right? So it starts with you putting your affairs in order, making sure that whatever you've already worked for, life is not going to just happen and wipe it all out with a sickness. No, we don't want that. We're working hard to have this money. So we want to make sure that we're equally working hard to keep this money, right? So now we're going to segue into our guest speaker that we have tonight, which I am super, super grateful. He, like I said, he is a man of God. When I reached out to him and I said, this is what we'd like to do, he did not even think about it. He didn't say, let me get back to you. No way. So Aaron Vincicini is the founding attorney of his company, AMV Law PLLC. Is dedicated to helping families in the New York area. So if you live in New York, shout out to you. You got direct access, right? And California to secure their futures through personalized estate planning. He's licensed in both states, right? Aaron specializes in creating wills, trusts, guardianship, and other essential legal documents that protect family, their loved ones, and their legacy. We talk about accumulating assets. Well, guess what? You want to protect that asset too, right? His deep commitment to his church, hallelujah, we love people of God, right? And strong family values shape his approach, ensuring that each client receives compassionate, empathetic guidance with a focus on understanding each family's unique needs. Aaron combined his legal expertise with a personal touch that resonates with clients. He offers both remote and in-person consultation to accommodate the diverse needs of those he serves. With none other ado, I present to you Pastor and attorney Aaron Vincicini. So take it away, and I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you so much, Odetta. Well, that was amazing. That was a lot of awesome information already. So great job. So I'm going to pull up my slides. Let's make sure everybody can see them. Can everybody see that? Okay, cool. All right. So my information, I put more information in this presentation than I normally do because I just wanted to make sure it was very informative. I knew this would probably be a little bit more intimate group. I'll try to get through it quickly and hopefully it's not boring. Odetta definitely has a gift for explaining all that stuff in a way that it's not boring, and I hope that I can do the same thing. But before I get started, I do want to send this quick link in the chat. So if anybody, it's a little bit interactive as I go through. You might find there's stuff in this worksheet that you can fill out. And the idea is that as we go through this, you might find that there's something that you need to take care of in your planning to make sure that your family's protected. Odetta already hit a lot of it, but I'm going to specifically talk about this protection that you need after death, which is wills, trust, and guardianship. For me, guardianship is the most important thing. It's kind of the reason why I got into this area of the law. You can see here, this is my family. That's my wife is the beautiful woman there on the left. And then my daughter is Adrian, my son Ethan. That's my mom in the background. And for me, I realized when I had children that I didn't have a plan to protect them if I die. Part of that is financial, but a big part of that also is who's going to take care of them. If me and my wife were to get into an accident and pass away unexpectedly, what happens to our kids? And I realized that there was no plan. They would probably go into foster care, and then there would be a giant legal battle, and who knows what happens to my kids after that. And for me, that was very scary. And so this is kind of what brought me into this area of the law. But I also learned a lot on the financial end as I went into it. And I think that's a lot of the stuff that you learned there from Odetta as well. So for me, this is really about families. This is about protecting the people that you love. When we talk about estate planning, to me, estate planning doesn't mean anything. It's just documents. I prefer a different name. I call it legacy planning. And so for me, legacy is what matters. Your family is what matters. When you talk about your kids growing up without you alive anymore, what's your legacy with them? What values have you left them? Are they going to remember what you taught them? Are they going to remember what you left them? Are they going to have anything that you left them? Are they going to be taken care of by other people that you leave them with if they're still very young? What is the legacy that you're going to leave them? Estate planning is about documents. I think legacy planning is more about guidance. It's about getting the right people in your life who can help guide you along that process. And you need a multitude of people. I'm just one person that's going to be in your formula of people that you need in your life on the legal side. But I think you need a lot of other financial clarity before you even get to this, which is, I think, a lot of what Odetta does for you. Okay, so let's kind of jump into a little bit. Why is this important? Number one, you want to protect your family. If you have a business, you want to protect your business. What happens to your business? And then also, what happens for you? Are your values protected? What you care about, is that protected? Are you protecting yourself? You are your biggest asset, right? That's what we just learned. Okay, so let's talk about some of the big documents. This is Make a Will Month. Okay, so what is a will? A will is a document that you design that will tell the court what to do with your assets when you die. It tells the court how you want your assets distributed. It's the document that primarily tells the court who you want to appoint as guardians over your children, if you have minor children. And it's one way to help settle family disputes if anybody goes to court and tries to challenge the court to take some of your assets and you didn't want them to have it. And you would be shocked how often that happens. When people pass away, all of a sudden, people are coming out of the woodwork from your family and they're trying to say this, well, actually, he would have wanted me to have this. No, he would have wanted me to have this, or whatever. And then there's a dispute and it actually causes rifts in your family. And sometimes this doesn't even, it's not even coming from a bad place, but in this time where people are suffering, they're mourning your loss, they might actually think you wanted them to have that. And because you didn't leave any clarity about what you wanted, they start to fight over it. And now people that you care about are fighting instead of having peace and security, knowing what your plans actually were. Okay, so a will is one way to do that, but it's really just the first step. Some of the essential parts of a will, you need to appoint an executor. This is just fancy language for who's the person that's going to talk to the court on your behalf. If you don't appoint an executor over your estate, what happens is the court appoints one for you. And usually that's just a random stranger. And so imagine a stranger, some court administrator that you don't even know, is telling the court what you wanted to do with all of your assets because you didn't have a plan and you didn't appoint somebody to speak on your behalf. Okay, so you have to have an executor. You need to have a detailed inventory of your assets. If you don't actually keep a record of what you have, then the court has to try to find it. Well, how are they going to find it? What if you have a lot of digital assets, cryptocurrency? What if you have digital accounts? How are they going to know? How are they going to find this stuff unless you leave some sort of a record? You also need to name your beneficiaries. Who are the people that you want to receive what you have, and what do you want them to receive? You have to be specific. And then you have to appoint guardians. In other words, if you have minor children, who do you want to take care of them? And we could have a long presentation just about that. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then also in your will, you can actually have some direction on how to settle debts that you might be carrying. So if you don't want to just dump all your debts on your kids or on your wife or your spouse, well, maybe you could have a plan for how those debts get settled upon your death so that it doesn't just get dumped on the people that you care about. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about guardianship. This is a big one, and I specifically invited some of my friends here tonight for this because I wanted them to know about this. When we talk about naming and appointing guardians, this is a big deal, especially if your children are under the age of 18. If you were to die, and let's say that you die, let's say you get into a car accident and you're in the car with your spouse or your partner, or you're the only one taking care of your kids, you're a single parent. If you get into a car accident and you die, then what happens is the police respond to the accident. They have to try to find out who you are. If you have children, they might not even know. Eventually they find out, but who knows how long that takes. And maybe your babysitter is trying to take care of the kids in the meantime. If they don't know what happens to you, maybe they're calling 911 and there's all this confusion. Your kids end up being taken care of, being taken by the police. All this mayhem happens with your kids. You need to have a plan in place so that if these things happen, there's already a plan that can be given to authorities so that your kids don't go into that type of an emergency situation. The worst thing that happens is they get put into foster care because they don't have any guardians designated. So you have to actually designate guardians for your children. There's several common mistakes that people make when they're trying to appoint guardians. Number one, they might appoint a couple. Well, in other words, I appoint my friends, they're married, they're my best friends. I think, okay, well, I really trust them. I want my kids to go to them. Well, what if one of those friends, that, married couple, dies? So I have my friend Bob, who's married to, Jill, and I really trust Jill with my kids, but I don't know if I trust Bob alone with my kids, right? Jill dies. But because I have no plan in place that says if Jill dies and Bob is the only survivor, what happens to the kids then? Now Bob is taking care of my kids without Jill. This type of stuff happens. You actually have to have a plan for all these different types of alternate scenarios. These are things that people don't really think through. Another reason that people make mistakes when they appoint guardians is because they think the most important thing is, let me give my kids to somebody who has financial resources, because if they have the financial resources, I know my kids will be taken care of financially. But you're the one who is supposed to leave them financial resources. So if you're thinking, let me give them to somebody who has financial resources, you've already messed up, because that person with financial resources might have totally different values than you, but they might not even be mature enough to raise children, but you just picked them because of the money when you should have been the one that left them money in the first place. Well, that's where Odetta comes in, I'm sure, and she could help you to have the money so that you don't have to choose people based on whether or not they have money, because you actually have a plan to leave them money in the first place, right? Okay. Another problem is they don't have a trust. We'll get into that a little bit later, but a trust is super important, and I'll get into some of the specifics, but one of the biggest reasons is this point here that says no incapacitation plan. What does that mean? A will does not spring into effect until you die. So imagine you're in a coma and you put all your plans in a will. That will does not activate because you're still alive. So if you don't have any plans outside of the will, let's say plans for your assets that are in a trust, well, all those plans do nothing at all because you're technically still alive, even though you're physically incapable of taking care of your children. So that's a huge mistake that people make. They think, I'll just leave a will, it's no big deal. But then what happens is one of those terrible things that were previously talked about. What if you end up in the hospital? You're not working. You're not able to provide and do the things that you normally would do, but you're still alive. Well, that will's doing absolutely nothing for you until you actually die. Another common problem is they don't communicate with the people that they want to appoint in these important positions. So in other words, you appoint all these people as guardians or alternate guardians or beneficiaries or special caretakers or fiduciaries or whatever, but you never communicate with them, and then you die and they don't do anything. They don't actually take your plan and put it into action for you because you never told them the plan. Okay, so that's a big deal too. You can't just make a secret plan and not share it with the people. You have to have a plan to communicate with the people that are going to jump in the event of an emergency. And then the other common mistake is not making exclusions. In other words, it's important to not just nominate or appoint guardians, but you also want to have exclusions. Let's say you have a brother, that maybe you're not on good terms with. You pass away. You don't think your brother's going to come and try to take your kids, but then you pass away. You left your kids to your best friends. He comes back all of a sudden now that you're dead, and he petitions the court and says the kids belong to me. Well, because you didn't actually exclude him from taking guardianship over the kids, now they're with the person that you would have never wanted them with because you didn't plan for that scenario. So these are just common things to think about. So for me as a father, this is a big deal to me. And these are the types of things that I want to help people with, taking care of your family when you're not there. You have to have a good plan in place. Okay, this is an ebook that I wrote. It's super short. You can go to my website if you want to check it out. But this will help you to think through the different steps of appointing guardians in a proper way without making some of these common mistakes. So you can go to my website, it's amvlaw.nyc, and you can just click a button and get the ebook. Okay, so a will is not enough. Already talked about that. Why not? Well, number one, if you're not dead yet, the will does nothing. Number two, after you die, the will goes into what is called probate. And probate is like purgatory. It's like you really want to go to heaven, but you can't. It's like you're stuck in this legal process that just siphons money out of your estate until the court decides they're ready to execute whatever plan they agree with. It's pretty intense, right? Probate on average can take about 7 to 9 months minimum. So imagine you and your spouse or a single parent, you pass away and you're expecting all of your plan to go into effect right away. But what actually happens is all your assets get frozen and they do nothing for your family until probate is over. 9 months later, sometimes a year and a half, 2 years later, all your assets are completely frozen as they go through the probate process. Probate, of course, is public record. So all of your assets become public record. People can actually go and see the probate court cases that are up, and they can go and they can look up what assets you own, and they can even find out who got your assets. So imagine you have a certain amount of money that you saved up, $300,000 for one of your kids. Well, they know, oh wow, your daughter just got $300,000, and now they can become a predator and go try to take advantage of your children because they know what they have. This is a public process. Pretty crazy. Not only that, but your estate will pay for all of the court fees of the probate process. So you're paying the executor fees out of your estate. You're paying for any attorney fees, any attorneys that are assigned to the probate case, no matter what side they're on. You're paying the court fees, the filing fees, all that stuff is coming out of your estate as they take their sweet time processing your plan, your will, right? You could lose up to 10% of your assets just going through this process. The other problem is that the court doesn't always find everything that you own, which we briefly touched on earlier, because if you don't have something like a trust that has already gathered your assets, then the court tries to gather them for you, and they don't always find them. So what happens is it goes, for example, in New York, it goes to what's called the Office of the New York State Comptroller. Every day, New York State is returning $1.5 million to people who found lost money or lost assets from that are owed to them, either from them or their family members that passed away. And you should go check this out. Just look it up for your state, or for New York, you can look it up, Google it. There's $18.4 billion of lost assets just in New York. Imagine what that is for the entire United States of America. And this happens because people don't have a plan. They don't put their assets into something like a trust where it's already gathered. When they die, everything goes through probate. The court has no idea what you had. They're just kind of guessing. They're shooting in the dark. And if they can't figure out who owns what, it ends up in control of the state. Okay, so the best solution is to do what we call this revocable living trust, to create a trust. What this does is it allows you to gather your assets, place them in something secure before you pass away, and then when you pass away, the trust has already determined what will happen, and it never goes through the probate process. So it actually prevents the court from marshaling any of your assets. They will not make it public record, and they're not allowed to change any of the directives that you've written in the trust. All those assets are protected. So you do a little bit of planning before you die, you place everything in the trust, and then you protect your assets from the probate process, from those predators who are going to be watching to see what you have and what you're passing on, from any creditors who are going to try to take anything out, or any family challenges, or a former relationship, or whatever. and you make sure that what you have protects your family and goes to your loved ones and builds the legacy that you desired while you were still alive. Um, Revocable just means that it can be discarded or rescinded during your life. So sometimes people think, okay, well, if I put everything in a trust, does that mean I lose control of my assets? Well, no, it doesn't. Actually, you still have complete control over your assets while you're alive, because this is just legal term, revocable living trust. If it was an irrevocable trust, that would mean you have no control. Now, you don't normally want to do that, but there are some situations where you want an irrevocable trust. So, in other words, if you don't want control over those assets because it will disqualify you from certain benefits. So, this is sort of a special topic. It might apply to you, it might not. I just want to throw it in here because this is a little bit more of an in-depth webinar tonight. So, if you have special needs, if you receive disability, Medicaid, something like that, you actually would want to have an irrevocable trust, because some of those extra assets that might disqualify you from those benefits that you need to go into an irrevocable trust, not into a revocable trust. Okay, so that's just sort of extra information. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, you can ask after the presentation. Okay, so even a revocable living trust isn't always enough. Well, why not? Because really what you need is a plan that is going to work for you when you actually need it, right? So a lot of people, what they do is they learn all this information. They go, okay, great. I'm going to rocketlawyer.com or wherever, and I'm just gonna like print out these templates that I can buy for like 20 bucks and, go to a notary and I'm good to go, The problem is you have no idea if those documents are gonna work. And you have to know how they work, because remember, there's a lot of other people involved in this process. Who's going to administer the trust after you die? Who's actually, and who are you communicating with? Do you even know how to explain it to them? Who are the guardians that you're appointing? Do they know what they're going to do after you die? This is a whole process that you have to be able to walk people through and not just fill out some paperwork. You need guidance. You need advice, and you need people that are going to be there for you when these events actually happen to you. So I like to say you have to avoid poor planning. People sometimes want to save money. They say, I don't know, I don't want to hire an attorney. It's an intimidating thing to hire an attorney, right? I get it, because I understand, I am an attorney, but I understand how intimidating that can be. The problem is that if you try to have this mindset of I'm trying to save money, you end up hurting yourself in the end. Because if you don't have a good plan, I mean, what if the documents that you put together don't work and then everything ends up in probate anyway? Well, now you're losing thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, because you tried to save money by not just making sure you had a good plan to begin with. This mindset does more damage than good. You're protecting your family, you're protecting your loved ones, so it's better to just make sure that you have the right people advising you now so that everything is set up correctly. You save money later. Don't have that poor planning mindset. What you do with someone like me, which I can only help if you're in New York or California, but the reason why you would want an attorney to help you with this is to clarify what you need, to guide you to make the right legal decisions. You want a comprehensive plan that gives you all the right documents that are going to do the right thing and be in the hands of the right people. And so you need a trusted advisor in your life to help you make those decisions. You need to make sure that your planning is actually going to get done what you want it to get done. You also need to keep your plans updated. A very common mistake is people make a plan and then they never update it. Well, your assets aren't going to stay the same for your entire life. So if you just go on Rocket Lawyer and get your little template, and then your assets have evolved 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, 15 years down the line, well, your plan was made for the assets that you had 20 years ago. You need to make sure that your plan is evolving with your life. That's why you need people in your life who know what you're doing. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up here. It's already 8:30, but here's what you should do. Number one, Get financially organized. Have many advisors in your life. Get financially organized. Number two, make informed decisions that will empower your family, your life, and the people that you love. And number three, you have to make a decision, right? A lot of times you hear all this information, you go, sounds really good, but then you make no decisions. You actually have to decide to do something. Otherwise, you still won't have anything in place. People think, I don't have any money, I don't need to make a plan. Well, you're wrong, because the state already has a plan for you. If you die, the state is executing a plan on your behalf, and it is the worst possible plan. It is the nightmare plan. So you absolutely should make a plan. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Make a plan now. Some people think, oh, well, my spouse, if you're married, they're going to get everything I have anyway, and I love them, and so everything will be okay. Well, what if your spouse remarries? Do you also love that person and trust them? Because they're going to have all the assets that you just left your spouse. You got to think ahead. You got to understand real life. And when you're not around, anything can happen. The plan that is already in place for you right now is way worse than the plan you could decide to make. So my advice is just start making the plan now. Can you do it yourself? No. You need people in your life that can inform you, that can educate you, and that can guide you. And they should be people that you trust. Okay, so I'll help you out if you need me and if you want me to. If you're in New York or California, whenever I do a presentation like this, I offer what I call the $1,000 offer, just a discount. So if you go to my website and you fill out my family legacy assessment, just tell me what you need. Fill out that form that I sent you the link to. You can set up and book today a planning session with me, and I'll waive the fee for the planning session, which is $750, and I'll give you $250 off any planning package that you decide to take with me. So basically you save $1,000. The reason I make this offer is because I actually do want to help you, and this is why I've chosen what I do. And so if that helps you to get started, then I'm like more than happy to do that. And it's for me, it's gonna be a reward for me just to be able to help you. So this is an easy thing for me to give away. But to take advantage of it, what I tell you to do is book today. The reason why I do that is because I know if you don't book today, you're not going to book tomorrow. So that's the only reason I say that. So book today, take advantage of the offer, and then I would love to help you out. To do that, just go to www.amvlaw.nyc/get started. Super easy. If you have any problems, you can message me. This is my information. I have 2 phone numbers, one for California, one for New York. You can email me. That's my email address. Or you can just go to my website, which also has my contact information on there. So I went kind of quick. Hopefully that was timely and informative. If you have any questions, I think we're going to have a Q&A, but I'll pass it back to Odetta to tell us what to do.
Wow, this is amazing. Yes, we do have a Q&A, and I'm going through the chat. Let's see. I see Mickey posted, do you practice in New Jersey?
I do not. Unfortunately, I don't practice in New Jersey. I can only do New York or California, but I could try to refer you to somebody in New Jersey.
Okay, awesome. So someone said, I'm in PA. Can you possibly recommend someone who practices here? Yes, we can. Let's see. So Ruth said, if someone creates their legacy plan in New York but moves out of state, how would that work? That's a good question, Ruth.
Yeah, as long as you do it in a state where you're at now, it'll be a valid plan. Most states already have a way of adopting plans. As long as they're valid in another state, other states will also receive them.
Okay, so if you live here in New York and you do your plan here, but then you move to, I don't know, Timbuktu, you're still good?
They'll still honor it. They'll still honor the plan. For me as an attorney, it's a big deal because I'm under regulation, so I can't help you in another state. But if I do your plan in my state, then it's not going to affect you in another state.
Okay. So for everyone, because we are part of this amazing organization that serves all over the US, Canada, and Puerto Rico, right? If you're outside of New York and California, don't worry, we still can help you, right? We still can help you. We cover all states in the US and Canada. So Mickey said, do advanced directives help resolve the no incapacitation point, or are those just for yourself?
The advanced directive is just for yourself. That's a really good question. It's not going to trigger anything that happens with your assets. So I did kind of fly through some of the documents. The advanced directive will help you because it will appoint somebody to be in charge of your medical decisions, which helps you greatly. You can also do a financial power of attorney, which will give somebody the authority to access your assets, somebody that you trust, so that your money can be used to take care of you as well as your children or your family. So that's a big one too, a financial power of attorney. You can also do the medical power of attorney. You have to do a HIPAA release and things like that as well. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't trigger any of your asset distribution. So if you have a will in place, those documents won't trigger a will. The will only trigger if you die. That's where you really need the trust, and you need a plan that's more comprehensive so that you have those people that you've appointed. Let's say you have somebody that's going to be your medical power of attorney or your financial power of attorney. Those people have directions that you've left them, and they're going to follow those directions on your behalf while you're incapacitated. So that's a really good question.
Awesome. I think that's all the questions I saw in the chat. If you guys if you have a question, you could just unmute and ask your question. Okay, so while you guys are thinking, right, I want to share. I'm gonna. Oh, that everyone, please, everyone take us, especially if you live in New York and New York and California, right? Take a screenshot of attorney's contact info, and in the Zoom chat does have the link, his website to book the consult, as well as the first link that he dropped. So make sure that you guys have those. Okay, so while you're thinking of your questions, I want to share this piece. Awesome, perfect. So a lot of people, have these accounts, right? Everybody has a bank account, right? Everybody has a bank account. It doesn't matter how much you have in there, you have a bank account, right? Then we have, let's see. Okay. So everyone has bank accounts, savings accounts. Well, some people got CD. If you have a job, your job is probably giving you some type of retirement savings account, 401k, 457, 403b. Some of us have mutual accounts, mutual investment, stock market accounts, IRA, Roth IRAs, stocks, life insurance or index annuities, bonds, and college fund. Now, these are pretty much things that, most people have or will have eventually in their lifetime, right? So if you don't mind, all of them have a check mark, and the red check mark, we're gonna expand a little on it, right? But that's a red flag if you don't know what we're about to tell you. That could totally wind up in probate court with this long 2-year battle, and your kids are still hungry, and they ain't got money to pay the mortgage because all of this money is in these accounts, which is now part of the probate court, which Pastor Aaron is going to talk about. If you have these accounts, what are some things you should look out for and fix to make sure it doesn't end up in probate court? However, the two that has a green check mark, right? We love green check mark. If you have an index annuity or a life insurance, these are insurance-based products. Because there are life insurance, they are never, ever part of any calculation or distribution or going to court, because these accounts, you have to put a beneficiary, or you put it as the beneficiary as your trust. But most people are putting, their loved ones as a beneficiary. So immediately when someone passes away, these things are going to pay out. The death benefit will pay out, to your loved ones. Everything else is kind of like up for grab, depending on how it's set up. So if you don't mind, can you share a little on, for example, a checking account? Because everybody got a checking account, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so this is a great chart. All the red flags is basically those are examples of assets that are frozen if you die, even with a will, but without a trust. The cool thing about life insurance and retirement plans usually is that if you have a named beneficiary on those plans, then they won't go through the probate process because those plans are supposed to pass the money to the named beneficiary. So that is one of the benefit of having those plans. You do still have to think about a trust for those plans sometimes too, though, because if you have minor children, you might not want them to get $1 million in their bank account if they're 4, right? Because who's really taking care of that bank account, number one. But even if they're young, let's say they're 18, do you want them to have $1 million right away? I don't know. So that's where a trust can be super beneficial, and you still want to dump a insurance policy or a retirement plan a lot of times into a trust instead of into a bank account. Okay, but with bank accounts, savings accounts, some of these other assets like a CD, 401k, stocks, for example, all these things, you have to put these into a trust. You put these into a trust, and then they're protected, and then they'll be passed on without going through the probate process. And that specific process isn't super complicated, but it might just mean retitling your assets. So you make the trust, number one, and then number two, you retitle the assets. So in other words, your checking account, even though you have full control over it, you're never losing control of your checking account because that would be crazy. But you're going to retitle it. So you create your trust, and now the trust is going to be, or the checking account is going to be in the name of the trust. But because it's a living trust, you are the administrator of the trust. You control the trust. So you also control the bank account. So practically speaking, nothing has changed except for the name on the account. But it puts it in the trust, and now it's protected so that when you pass away, it doesn't go through probate. So that's sort of the short and long answer.
Awesome. Thanks for elaborating. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, we thank you so much for your time. Thanks for showing up. We hope that it was valuable to you. I know it sure was for me. I could never hear this enough. If you are a guest, right, as we always say, please call immediately the person who invited you, right, to take actions. Take action. Now is not time to think about it. You got to act now, right? So take actions. Let us know what you're interested in, and we'll get the ball rolling to put things in motion, because we just never know. We just never know what could happen tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, especially if you have assets, especially if you got stuff. You need to take actions even quicker if you got stuff. If you ain't got nothing, you still need to take action, right? So thank you so very much. We will see you guys back here next Thursday again. And we're super honored to be able to give this information to the public, because a lot of people are not aware, and we want to make sure that people are informed, because when you are informed, you can make better money decisions, right? You want to protect your assets, lock it up, right? And make sure you protect you first, because without you all that money is going to go away, right? So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys back here next Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you, Odetta. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Odetta. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Odetta. Thank you. Good night, everyone. That was amazing.
Of an 18-year-old, and I work in the banking industry.
I'm David Sutherland from Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm a living benefit life insurance agent. When I had first met Latasha, 30 years old, single mother with an 8-year-old son.
I am an avid gym goer. I was really in great health. Dave came over one afternoon.
She explained that, what she was trying to accomplish was to protect her 8-year-old son in case something happened.
The idea that I like the most about the living benefits, it gave me security to let me know that if anything happened to me, my son would still be taken care of.
what we ended up doing was a 30-year term policy for 250,000 with all the benefits included.
So I decided to put the policy in place with Dave. Years had gone by and I'm just working every day, going to work, not thinking anything of it. And one day I get a phone call from my doctor. And they called to let me know that I was diagnosed with stage 2/3 breast cancer. It was one of the worst calls in my life. I literally thought I was like losing everything that I had always worked for. I had always been in great health. I had all these financial plans set. And just to hear that, it just made me feel like I was losing everything. I went into shock for about 2 days. I didn't eat. I couldn't really sleep. My doctors were basically some of the best doctors that we had, and they put a plan together how we were going to beat cancer. So it began with telling me the financial needs, of course, the surgeries that I would need. The funding itself was astronomical. My job was kind enough to say, well, we'll give you time off, but it will be unpaid. Therefore, I really didn't have any income coming in to take care of my mortgage, to take care of my son. My insurance didn't cover 100% of my chemotherapy, and I couldn't afford it. I had stocks, I had savings, but it was nothing compared to the money that I would need to take care of the chemotherapy.
She happened to call and say, I need to cancel my plan. I have a health crisis. I've been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I said, well, no, you don't need to cancel your plan to try and save premium. You need to put in a claim.
Through my job, I had great health insurance. I always thought that because I had great health insurance, I was always covered. Chemotherapy wasn't covered 100% with my insurance. So the living benefit really came in and helped me take care of those chemo treatments, my radiation, my surgeries, my biopsies. There's a lot of things associated with cancer that the insurance companies do not cover.
That's what gets people in trouble financially. And that's why you have a plan with living benefits that you don't have to die to use your plan.
I really didn't have income coming in to put gas in my car, to pay my car note. And I remember speaking with my doctors, and they told me this financial plan was going to cost thousands. One of the first plans that I received was $20,000.
The claims process took 2 to 3 weeks at the most. And then Latasha called me one day and just said, hey, I just got a check in the mail today for just a little over $65,000. She still has almost $170,000 of a remaining benefit that's still existing.
Even though I was still fighting cancer, I still had surgeries, I still had to recover from. Financially, I didn't have to fight through anything because the living benefits plan was there. I just wanted to make sure that my son didn't feel that his mom was sick. He knew I was sick. You know, it was something that I was living through. I didn't want it to affect him at all. He still had his cable, still had his games. And I know to a lot of people that's not important, but to me, it was important for me to feel like I'm fighting this, not he's fighting this cancer. Through a total of 9 surgeries, and 2 years later, I've been cancer-free, 2 years December. And my life is like taking a total turn for the best.
She's back to living a normal life. And it's just a very rewarding, fulfilling thing to have been a small part of that.
The living benefit plan is something that everybody needs to look into, to spare just a few moments of your time, whether it's $30, $40, $50 a month. This is your future that you're thinking about. A lot of people say, I love my kids. If you love your kids, think about your kids' future. Think about your future with your kids, and think about your kids' future without you. If you're not thinking about all of these things, then you're really not planning for a future at all. And the living benefits plan basically makes sure that your kids are taken care of, you're taken care of, your illness is taken care of. Money isn't everything, but when you're battling cancer, it's a whole lot off.
All righty, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys back here next week, Thursday. And of course, like we always say, please, please, please get in touch with a person that invited you to take the next step.